You see, at first I hit the button wrong and then I went back to it, so it kind of messed up for me there. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are at the final day of January, and you already know what we do here. Hold on, I gotta save some web pages, my bookmarks real quick because I'm running through Forspoken right now, and I've just been looking for some stuff in Forspoken, getting stronger for my next stream on Thursday. So I've been busy. Oh, I'm sorry. Been kind of busy messing with the game, so I got kind of really caught up in it. So I apologize to everyone here. Let me just bring up all that I need for today's reflections. Because we got 3 chapters. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do this so you guys can see me. Let's go ahead and get the formalities out of the way. Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to yet another One Piece reflection stream where we go over every chapter we get within a month for, well, the series of One Piece. And this is my first reflections of the year, as we are at the end of January. Now, we got 3 really good chapters of One Piece, including the last chapter. Actually, all 3 chapters in January were really, really good. Especially the last one that we got our hands on. Hold on. It's too many sounds that were popping up. Okay, hold on. Things are not moving as quickly. Let me fix that. Let me fix the frame rate real quick. Make sure everything's good. I got to make sure that this stream quality is actually good for all of you. I don't know why. It seems like it's on a bit of a delay. It's kind of odd. Hold on. I want to make sure everything's good first. Reduce the focus. The exposure should be fine. All right, let me save this page as well. Sorry, I think it's the amount of tabs that I have up right now that's kind of throwing everything off. I want to make sure everything is good for everyone first. But Ogata-san, good to see you. And let me pull up the pages. Like, there's a lot of things I need to pull up. I don't know why it's trying to feel real slow right now. Everything should be fine. Everything is moving fast, so it's kind of odd. I know, my first reflection stream, and it doesn't feel all that professional. I know. I got caught up, plus I had a late breakfast, so I was caught up in eating that as well. But that's no excuse. All right, move that one over. All right. Good Lord, everything is moving slow. What happened? Did I do something wrong? Did I offend somebody? Why is everything moving so jittery? Just stop loading. I just need to read the short stuff that's at the end of it. That's it. Just stop loading. Just stop. Good Lord. Man, that was crazy. Okay, so just loading up the web pages for the One Piece chapters was slowing everything down. All right, so we got 3 chapters in the month of January, and it pretty much explained, well, I wouldn't say it explained stuff, but a lot of things happened, and the last 2 chapters just had a massive, big reveal that surprised me and everyone else. And then the final one, it has by far one of the biggest cliffhangers of this. Well, we start off this year, ending the first month on a massive cliffhanger. So let's go over the first chapter, chapter 1071. Okay, now all of a sudden, Viz doesn't want to load up any of the images. What in the world? There we go. So chapter 171, the hero deploys, and it starts with Kuma flying all across the sea with a beeline towards the red wall, and he crashes into it, shocking everyone who's there, and they just say, Kuma's here, and then the Marines try to go after him as Kuma starts looking up the red line. And then we come back to the Labo phase as CP0, who currently has control of the Seraphim right now, are going after Vegapunk. And Lilith wants to go out there and fight, and Edison wants to go out there because he's got an idea. And then Vegapunk says, well, you heard the stakes. I request our help out of this mess. And we don't know who he's talking to on the other side, but we find out in the last chapter, in chapter 173. And as this is going on, all the Straw Hats are preparing to leave, with Vegapunk explaining to them, like, yes, I request that I have a spot on your ship for 7. So it's not just Vegapunk, but all of his satellites that he wants to bring with him. And as this is going on, Bonnie has awoken from her unconsciousness after fainting after all those bugs got drawn to her like a couple of chapters back. Bonnie goes taking off because she knows where Vegapunk is, and Luffy's trying to warn her, hey, I promised that old guy I'd help him escape. Don't beat him up. And as this is going on, and a siren goes off. And when that happens, it turns out that the defense systems around the Labo phase gets disabled. And this allows both Kaku and Lucci and Stussy to go above the Labo phase, because beforehand they weren't able to go up there, because when Kaku tried to go up there, the defense grid of the Labo phase itself pretty much fried him and kept anyone and anything from getting to the upper half of Egghead. But that's been disabled, and now all three of them managed to rise up there. And then when they go up, they see the Straw Hat ship, which is up there as well, and Kaku sees it, and Lucci tells him to destroy it. And then he tries to use Stormleg's Sky Slicer, Rankyoku, and that happens, but then someone on the ship who's sleeping deflects it, and it turns out that it's Zoro who deflects Kaku's, Rankyaku, and Zoro says, who dares to disturb my nap? And that pretty much starts like a big old fight between Kaku and Zoro after so long, because they haven't seen each other since the events of Enies Lobby, where Zoro beat him beforehand. And both of them have definitely become stronger since then, but like I said when I reacted to this chapter, Kaku is pretty much small fry in comparison to who Zoro faced off with before. So Zoro and Kaku reunite after so long, and then everyone is still inside the Labo phase while they realize that Zoro's fighting with Kaku. And then it gets down to Luffy finally catching up. Sorry if I'm having a hard time getting my words together. It cuts to Luffy finally reuniting with all the Straw Hats. So all the Straw Hats, save for Brook and Zoro, are all reunited in one room. And as this is going on, everyone notices that Vegapunk is gone, as he's steadily being chased around by Bonnie, with her saying, can you turn my father back or not? Those are your only two options. And then he says, no, I can't. I'm sorry, but there's a good reason. Then it cuts to a stretch of sea on the new world. Touch his head, Lord, touch his head. In the new world, and it is on the Victoria Punk, which is Kid's ship, where both Kid and Killer and the rest of his crew are sailing. And it turns out that the path that they'd taken away from Wano, they chose 3 paths. Law, Luffy, and Kid chose 3 different paths. And Kid apparently chose the path that leads him exactly and straight to Elbaf. So all 3 chapters we got were big because we haven't had Elbaf's name said in so long. The island of this island is the home of the giants, Elbaf. And then it gets to Navy HQ base G14, and we see Dahl, and we see someone saying, hey, lighten up, Dahl, don't undercut our manpower. Also, if you're really going to go pick a fight with an Emperor's Island, I assume you must have permission from higher up. And then this person is saying, huh, why is that? And it turns out that this person who's talking to Dahl right now is Garp, as he's getting his team together with Helmeppo and where? What is her name? I keep forgetting her name. It's not Hanabi or I forget her name. I forget her. You know what? Let me do this. Hold on. I forget this. Hibari, that's her name. Hibari. So Garp is there at G14. Almost reminds me of G4. Good Lord, was that so sad how it failed twice. But Hibari, thank you, Ogata-san. I picked it up before you said it. Cause of stream delay. But Garp shows up at G14 saying, get on board, we're gonna sail for the pirate island full of lead, wipe the floor with those pirates, and rescue Captain Kobe. So this is just the first chapter we get in January. And it's already starting off on a very, very high major note. First, one of the big notes is Vegapunk is going to be going with the Straw Hats. Secondly, we find out that Kid and company have arrived at Elbaf. You know, the island that everyone keeps hoping is the next arc and keeps wanting to go to, because I don't think there's any other place in One Piece that people want to go to more than Elbaf. We hear Elbaf all the time. We had a little bit of backstory of the people of Elbaf during Big Mom's backstory, but the mysteries that was back when Big Mom was 3 years old. It's been decades since that time, which means that we don't know what's going on the island of Elbaf because no one else does. See, beforehand, I don't even think the world government knows what's going on Elbaf because they no longer have a presence there, because the only real reason that the Navy, even the world government and Navy even came to Elbaf was to get Mother Caramel, who was, like a human trafficker. Let's just call it what it is. A human trafficker for children that would then get inducted into the Marines. And some of them are the giants that we see during Marineford, such as John Giant and the entire Giant Squad. All of them were brought over to the Marines because of Mother Caramel. But since Mother Caramel is no longer around to, just pawn off children from Elbaf to the Navy, it's unknown what the world government thinks of Elbaf as a whole. But it's also unknown what's currently going on Elbaf right now, because decades have passed since the big event of Big Mom killing one of their giant leaders, and we haven't seen anything since then. The only real person we've seen from Elbaf that we've seen at a young age and an older age was Harudin, because he was younger when we saw him like decades earlier with Big Mom. And then we saw him when he was growing up during Dressrosa. But we don't know what's going on Elbaf. The mystery of Elbaf is almost as mysterious as the location of the One Piece itself. And it's like crazy that we're getting Elbaf information. Just not even that. It's actually been 10 chapters since we last cut to G14. It's been a while, but the mystery of Elbaf is up there with, like, what is the Will of D? What is the One Piece? What is the Void Century? What's the history of the world before the world government got together and decided to rule it themselves? There's so many mysteries, but then we also have Elbaf. We've heard so much about it from the beginning of One Piece going forward when it was first mentioned. Usopp talking about Elbaf and wanting to go there. Us seeing giants such as Harudin and Broggy and what's his name? The two dudes that were, the guards before Water 7. We did see Gerd in the cover story. Yeah, we saw Gerd. And we saw Harudine's crew when they were preparing to leave Buggy's delivery service. Buggy's big delivery service. We saw Harudine's crew. But the mention of Elbaf is really up there as one of the biggest mysteries of One Piece, because out of every place in the One Piece world, Elbaf is the one that people know of, yet no one really talks about, because we all we know is that it's an entire nation, an entire island full of nothing but giants. Nothing and no one else but giants. And yet, no one has been able to go to Elbaf and come back and tell anyone else about it. That's all we know, is just that it's a land full of giants. We've never seen Elbaf to a great degree where we just see entire civilizations of giant people. We haven't. We only seen like the 2 elder leaders, and that was decades ago, who were pretty much the oldest living people in One Piece history. Now, we know one of them is dead because of Big Mom, but the other one, we don't know if he's still alive or not. But the mysteries of Elbaf is we can only gather what we know from what people say and from Big Mom's backstory. Big Mom's backstory is by far the most we got of Elbaf, and that still isn't enough. Then we know that one of the people that rules, that has a major place in Elbaf is Loki. But we don't even know anyone else. We don't know nothing about Elbaf. And I know people are really hoping that Elbaf is the next arc that we get. It'd be cool if it was, because if we go to Elbaf, there's a strong chance that we'll see Jaguar D. Saul again, if he's still on Elbaf. Last we've seen of Jaguar D. Saul was, we found out that he's still alive, but he's in hiding due to the events of the Ohara incident. Now, I would really like to go to Elbaf for the next arc after Egghead is done, but just the mention of Elbaf, it just sets so many gears in motion as thought gears in motion as to where we could possibly go after Egghead. Because, like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, we are in an unknown phase for One Piece. We have absolutely no idea where we're going to end up, what's the next location we're going to go to, because Punk Hazard was the last time we had a roadmap for One Piece. Now that we're out of Wano, which was the end of the roadmap, any place that Oda wants us to go to, we're just going to have to wait until the pages tell us, because we have absolutely no idea of knowing. But this chapter ends with Garp saying that, yeah, we're going to go to sail to Pirate Island full of lead, wipe the floor with those pirates, and rescue Captain Kobe. So that's another thing that's happening. Not only is Kid and Killer have arrived, they've arrived at Elbaf. They're not on their way there. They've arrived at Elbaf. But we also got Garp showing up, saying like, hey, I don't need permission from nobody to go there, to go to Island full of lead. I don't care if it's a Yonko. I mean, this is a dude that clashed with Roger on the regular. On the regular. Let that sink in. On the regular, he clashed with Roger. So someone like Blackbeard, anyone for that matter, he's not really intimidated by it. Any of them. So he's all like, okay, I got my squad. Helmeppo, Hibari, I think you and we're going to go to Island full of lead and get Captain Kobe back. And he's going there without getting permission from anyone, because you know how Garp rolls. He rolls the way he wants. He rolls the way he wants to, regardless of the world government approves or not. Like, he has no respect of person, which I've noticed between a lot of the Monkey D family. Because he can look at nobles like they're just regular people, even when nobles see themselves as on par with celestial dragons, which is never something that's going to happen, simply because celestial dragons only acknowledge other celestial dragons. And if you're a noble, might as well be trash in comparison to them. So, like, when he reacted to Stelly, like Stelly trying to berate him and everything, Garp was all like, shut up, I don't gotta listen to you. And Stelly was all taken aback, like, how dare you talk that way to a noble? And I'm like, you do realize this man could crush you with a finger flick, right? But he doesn't realize that. So we got Kid, Killer, and the Kid Pirates arriving at Elbaf right now. And we got Garp saying he's going to go to Blackbeard's home main island, his main stronghold island, to just go there, beat up everybody, and get Kobe back. I think the Straw Hats' interactions with the Giants depend on how Kid acts in Elbaf. If he causes trouble, then yeah. Depending on how Kid acts in Elbaf will determine if they are kind of hostile to the Straw Hats if they arrive as well. Kind of like the situation on Zoe. They were very, very cautious of the Straw Hats and even kind of aggressive against them simply because of the events that had Jack show up and all the turmoil and destruction and death that came after him. So we could be looking at another Zoe situation if Kid sours the disposition of the Giants while he's there. And if the Straw Hats arrive after Kid, then expect another warm welcome. But we're just going to have to see until then. So that was chapter 171. So let's just go through the quick notes here. Kuma flies through the Grand Line until he crashes on the Red Port head first. The CP0 team arrives at the Labo phase after the Frontier Dome defenses are briefly deactivated. Kaku attempts to destroy the Thousand Sunny, but Zoro blocks Kaku's attack after having been awakened from his nap by it and begins to engage Kaku in battle. Vegapunk makes contact to a mysterious ally on Egghead to request help against CP0, fully knowing that person will be hunted by the world government for helping them. Hence why deigning for that individual's assistance was an option of last resort for him and his satellites. We find out who that person is in, I want to say, the last chapter. Luffy's group, except Bonnie, reunites with the other crew members back at the Labo phase. Bonnie chases the real Vegapunk, demanding that he turns her father, Kuma, back to normal. Vegapunk implies there is a reason why this cannot be done. The Kid Pirates have arrived at their island of choice, Elbaf. And lastly, Garp arrives at the G14 base where he decides to lead the mission to rescue Kobe from the Blackbeard Pirates. Now, the interesting thing about this proposition by Garp is the fact that we now know that every member of the Blackbeard Pirates has a Devil Fruit now. The only one who had a Devil Fruit power before... The only person other than Blackbeard that has a Devil Fruit power is San Juan Wolf. Everyone got their... San Juan Wolf and Lafitte, which is like a strange Devil Fruit that allows him to have wings on his back. But everyone else got their Devil Fruit powers after the time skip when Blackbeard, usurped all of Whitebeard's territory. So it's going to be interesting to see Garp against all these Devil Fruit users, one of which has Absalom's invisibility Devil Fruit, another one that has the ability to turn into anyone else. So an upgrade to the Clone Fruit, which is owned by Katarina Devon. We don't know what Avalo Pizarro's Devil Fruit is, nor do we know the Devil Fruit of Vasco Shot. We know the fruit powers of Jesus Burgess, Van Augur, and Doc Q, but everyone else's Devil Fruit, aside from the ones that I've mentioned, we still don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see how Garp fares out of everyone against an entire island full of people that support Blackbeard and also some of Blackbeard's very own captains, because he's known as, Admiral or Commodore of his whole crew. So along all these captains and the Commodore himself, it'll be interesting to see that exchange go. But my thing is, we still haven't seen the aftermath of Blackbeard versus Law. And I feel that the next time we see Blackbeard or Law, that's when we'll find out how that fight went. If we see Blackbeard first, before we see Law, that lets you know that things may have gone south. Because the way the storytelling works is that if two people are fighting, if the person like Law, for instance, gets seen first and he's by himself, then either one or two things happened. Either he won the fight or a deal was struck. But if we see Blackbeard first, then the same kind of applies. Either he won the fight or a deal was struck. But it really does depend on who we see first. If we see Law first, then we can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. But if we see Blackbeard before we see Law after their fight, then that may be cause for concern. Do you think someone like Pete Soto got Moria's fruit if he died? I mean, Moria's already a prideful individual, so I highly doubt he would have sided with Blackbeard. But if he does get killed, if Blackbeard had Moria killed, I mean, Shiryu of the Rain was already clearly more than enough to put Moria on his knees when Shiryu slashed him. So I would not be surprised if Moria died. Of course, Perona will be upset at this news, but we just got to find out. I wouldn't say these are matters that are plot holes or anything. It's just that Oda hasn't touched on it yet, which I feel he will. But if Pete Soto got Moria's fruit, where he can just take the shadows of people and become even more powerful, I don't know. I mean, Blackbeard has both the Yami Yami no Mi and the Guru Guru no Mi. And seeing as how we saw Moria's fruit, sorry, Scratchy. Seeing as how we saw Moria's fruit, which allows him to take the shadows of other people to make himself stronger, I don't know if Blackbeard would want someone to have a power that could basically try and rival his own. Not saying that the Shadow fruit can actually rival both the devil fruits that Blackbeard has in himself, but I don't know. I don't know if Moria would have gone along with Blackbeard. If he does, and Pete Soto does have Moria's fruit, then that just means that's the end of Moria. Now that you mention it, Perona was on her way to Fullaled during the reverie. I mean, if Moria gets out, it'll probably be because Perona uses her hollow or negative hollow on everyone to make them feel worse about themselves, which will allow Moria to get free if he's not dead already. Because as far as I know, the only way you can beat Perona's hollow fruit powers is if you are already a negative person, which is why Usopp is the perfect counter to her devil fruit power. But no one has been shown to be resistant to her devil fruit powers other than Usopp. So if that's a way for Moria to get out, then he can just have Perona use negative hollow on basically everyone they encounter. And since you can't physically touch them, aside from Kuma with his paw fruit, it could be a way for Moria to get away from the Blackbeard Pirates if he's still there. Because remember, when we first saw Blackbeard, that was when the Straw Hats first got to Wano. When Luffy and company first got to Wano, and Blackbeard was talking about how Big Mom was on his trail going to Wano. That's the last time we saw Moria. Days have passed, even weeks have passed, I dare say. How long did the events of Wano go? I feel like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks have passed. It's been a long time since Blackbeard was talking to Moria when we first seen Blackbeard in his first time skip appearance. A lot of time has passed between that encounter and the events of Wano all the way up to Egghead. A lot of time has passed, so we don't know if Moria is still alive or not. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint if he is. It kind of is. But I mean, this chapter just raises so many more questions. I mean, I know, and Garp going to Fullaled, which is full of people that follow Blackbeard, and any number of them could have devil fruit powers. Not saying that we should be concerned, because we already know that if you're around a month it is how long it's been since we seen Blackbeard talking to Moria on Island Fullaled. Then we have all these events where he left, and then he went off to go fight Law because he's trying to get his hands on some of the road poneglyphs. But Garp going to Island Fullaled, I wouldn't say it's a concern, but it's going to be interesting to see him take everyone down because we haven't seen Garp fight since the events of Marineford. And the only real time we actually saw him actually lay a hand on someone was when he jumped up to, knock away Marco. who was trying to make his way towards the execution platform that Ace was on. And that was the last time we saw Garp draw a fist and actually hit someone. It's been so long. It's been that long. But now we got Garp who's ready to fight on the island of a Yonko automatically. I mean, this is Garp we're talking about. I'm not concerned about his safety. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see him actually take up the fight and actually willingly fight after 2 years. I wouldn't even say 2 years of him fighting, but it's been a while. It's been a while since we actually seen Garp fight. And since we know that he specializes in, superhuman strength and just straight up hockey usage, I don't think we need to worry about him all that much, because as we learn from Law, if your hockey is strong enough, you can resist Devil Fruit effects. So Devil Fruit users may not be too much of a threat to him and company. We don't know how much of a fighter Hibari is. We know how much Helmeppo is, but not to the degree of Kobe. So it's going to be interesting to see that interaction of Helmeppo fighting in order to get Kobe back, since he was his best friend and all. But it's also interesting that here's another thing, and someone brought this up during my live stream when I was talking about Blackbeard fighting Law, and Blackbeard having Kobe and bringing him back to Island Full of Lead. If Blackbeard beats Law, then you'll have all three people that were involved in the Rocky Port incident. You have Law, who was involved with the Rocky Port incident and got numerous hearts that allowed him to be introduced as one of the 7 warlords. You have Blackbeard, who apparently was fighting one of the former members of the Rocks Pirates, who was residing on Island Full of Lead before he showed up, and him beating that former member is what fully allowed him to be recognized as a Yonko. And then you have Kobe, who is known as the hero of the Rocky Port. Hero of the Rocky Port incident. So you'll have 3 people. If Blackbeard beats Law, then and brings him with him to Island Full of Lead, then you'll have all 3 people that were involved in the Rocky Port incident all around each other. And it should be an interesting conversation between all 3 individuals, because they all had something to gain from this incident. Kobe was seen as a hero, like not the hero of the Marines, but a hero of the Rocky Port. Then you have Blackbeard, who gained the title of Yonko and got fully recognized as a Yonko for beating a former member of the Rocks Pirates there on Full of Lead, and or at the Rocky Port. And then you have Law, who took all those hearts of all those pirates, which allowed him to become one of the 7 warlords because of the Rocky Port incident. So all these 3 individuals together would spark an interesting conversation. But that's all I'm going to gather from chapter 1071. We need to move on to chapter 1072, The Weight of Memory. So this was a really interesting chapter because it put a lot of thoughts into just how Kuma's Devil Fruit could actually work and what it could actually affect. So going through this, This narration didn't really resonate with me at first, but now I understand what this narration means. Even if the world doesn't agree, I know that she is a living, breathing person, a true and undeniable human being. It was a success. And now it's dawning on me that in my mind, I was thinking about who's he talking about? And you find out at the end of this chapter. Even if the world doesn't agree, I know that she is a living, breathing person, a true and undeniable human being. It was a success. I am certain of it, and this is one great step towards the creation of world peace. Dr. Vegapunk, director of MAD's Laboratory for Peace. And it shows Bonnie transforming herself into a child in order to fool Vegapunk. And then we have Bonnie showcasing her Devil Fruit power with a move called Distorted Future, which pretty much puts her body shape in comparison to her father's Kuma. Big upper body, slender down towards the feet, and she tries to hit Vegapunk. And then she uses a new move called Age Skewer, which is the move that she uses in order to reduce people's ages. And then we see a little facet of her Devil Fruit power, which makes a person's age shoot out into like little glittery pieces, little shining pieces, like stuff that the marshmallow shapes you would see in Lucky Charms comes out of that person that represents their age. And Vegapunk is wondering why she did that. And then Vegapunk is going, "You've turned me into a powerless child. Give back the sparkling gems of my experience." And then she says, "Don't worry, my powers do not work on living things indefinitely," which means eventually he will go back to the age he was before. So if you get aged by Bonnie, it's not a permanent thing. It has a duration. "You said there's a good reason. Let's hear it. Why did you kill my father?" And then it gets to the red port as it shows Kuma steadily trying to climb up the red port. And as this is going on, Vegapunk is saying, "I made a promise to Kuma that I would never tell you the reason why. You had a good reason for killing my father, but you can't tell me why. Do you think I'm some kind of idiot? No, not at all. Please let me down. The decision to take away his free will came from none other than Kuma himself. You're a liar. My father would never choose to die and leave me behind. You killed him. It was hard for me too. I don't even want to remember. Kuma is a great man. I am proud of my good friend. I love him with all my heart, and that is why I cannot tell you. Please, Bonnie, you must understand." And then Bonnie's just being real forceful with Vegapunk, trying to find out more answers as to why Vegapunk turned him into the individual he is right now. And as that's going on, there's some beeping sounds going on with, Vegapunk crying out that this is abuse, because, he's a child right now, so he's saying, this is child abuse. And as that beeping is going on, Vegapunk is trying to dismay her, but she walks up to a door that has a paw print that's pretty much synonymous with her father, and she uses her devil fruit power with oiled shock to rapidly age the lock that is keeping the door closed. And inside this room is a floating bubble, the same type of bubble that Kuma uses to push out people's pains or cause or just basically one of his paw fruit bubbles. That's basically what it is. And whoa, what happened to chat? What happened to chat? Hold on, I'm just now noticing this. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know why the chat wasn't, linked up to the side there. My apologies, everyone. It must have been the glitch from earlier on. I'm just now noticing that, Ogata-san. I'm sorry. I'm just now noticing that. Sorry. But inside this room, surrounded by multiple scientific devices, just like in this technologically advanced room, floating in the middle of this room is a big old paw bubble. And Bonnie's just staring at it. And then as Vegapunk stares at it in his child form, we cut to a flashback where Kuma is talking to Vegapunk, where Vegapunk surmises memories. That's right, a scholar in the West Blue once said that people lose 21 grams of weight after they die. In other words, that is the weight of the human soul. The soul really exists. We can observe it. It's so fascinating. Your powers take pain, supposedly invisible, and give it form so that it can be foisted off onto others. It's like sending the peripheral nervous system signals via radio instead. So what about the mind and heart then? Mental images, memories, these things are signals emitted by neurons. How heavy are they? How big? You're saying you want me to produce memories and show you? You want me to embarrass myself? Please, you must. It's a chance for a great scientific leap. I'll be the only one who looks, I swear. And Kuma's all like, no. We also see that Kuma actually does have bare ears. I actually thought that it was part of his hair, but I honestly think it's genuine ears that he has, because his hair just covers the sides of his face, so you can't really see anything. I was seeing how my voice sounds when my hands are in front of my ears. It sounds weird. It sounds really weird. Like if you put your hands across your ears like that, I haven't done that since I was a kid. It sounds weird to me. But we don't, these apparently must be Kuma's ears, because we haven't seen his real ears before, or his ears be pulled back or anything like that. So he definitely has bare ears, which means that the hat that he wears, it has holes in the top for the ears to poke through. It's not a hat with bare ears on it. His ears are sticking through the top of it. which makes me wonder just what is Kuma? Because beforehand, remember when they said that Vegapunk was interested in Kuma because of his powers and his special body. So his people have special attributes, and it makes me wonder just what is Kuma? I'm thinking it's Kuma's devil fruit that are giving him his ears. I think so as well, because if it gives him paw pads, why not give him human ears as well? Matter of fact, let me pull up him. That is not good English. I apologize. But let me pull him up. So if we go over to his appearance, let's see. Of round bear-like ear. Okay, he has a pair of round bear-like ears that protrude from the top of his head. His eyes are strangely covered by clear mirrored lenses. While initially he will give the impression of wearing glasses, it seems that based on the pacifista that were destroyed, that his own eyes were actually replaced by cybernetic ones. Several decades ago, when Bonnie was a young child, his eyes were normal and he wore eyeglasses. So those are in fact his ears. And I dare say it's because of the pawpaw fruit. Like, I'm looking strengths and weaknesses of the pawpaw fruit. I'm looking at the different aspects to see if it has anything to do with giving him ears, or if that's just an attribute of Kuma as a whole. That's just something I wanted to check real quick. Okay, what is wrong with chat right now? It is... It is acting real weird. It's acting real weird where it doesn't want to properly update the chat when you guys say something. Hold on. Let me do this. Because it's not updating when you guys say something on the side. We'll get back to the discussion. We'll get back to it. Trying to make sure that chat works properly here. All right. Everything should be good now. Hopefully the chat will actually update when I go through this, but apparently those are Kuma's ears, and one thing that we don't know about Kuma's powers, or at least had a speculation about, was he can push out pain from people. But now it puts in your head, can he also push out memories as well? And I talked about this when the chapter dropped. Like, what if that bubble is his memories itself? And even Bonnie says, like, no, you can't fool me. This is my father's memories. Because Vegapunk tries to dissuade her from touching it, saying, don't you dare touch it, Bonnie. That is pain. You should know Kuma's powers. Enough pain to be lethal. And this is Vegapunk trying to dissuade Bonnie from actually touching it. Even though Bonnie knows her father's powers better than anyone else. And then it cuts to Kuma getting shot off the wall of the red line. And Bonnie says, no, I know my father's powers very well. And then Kuma gets knocked off the red port, and all the Marines who are there at the red port surround him. And then Kuma just starts... he just gets up, and then I started blasting. He's just blasting everybody around him. And then it shows Bonnie preparing to touch the paw bubble, going, this is my father's memory, isn't it? Then we cut back to the lava phase on Egghead, as Nami and Shaka are watching the fight between Zoro and Kaku and pretty much all the CP0. And then it cuts to Usopp, who says it's 2 against 3, depends on how they fight. Good thing Zoro and Brook are down there. They should be able to hold their own. And then we come to find out that the odds are not looking in the favor of anyone else because the Seraphim have reached up to where Lucci and Stussy are, such as S-Bear, S-Shark, S-Snake, and S-Hawk. You know, Kuma, Hancock, Mihawk, and Jinbei. They're all up there with Lucci and Stussy right now. It's 2 against 7, and the enemy is all elite units. And then Shaka says the Seraphim are equipped with just enough personality to make decisions for themselves according to the circumstances of battle. So they sensed they had a brief window when the barrier was down. I didn't even give them the order to come. And even that, so this is just another facet that pretty much says that the Seraphim have just enough personality to make certain decisions without being told. So we saw one aspect of their personality when, S-Snake, young Hancock was, being like a tsundere, while the rest of the crew was leaving and saying, like, you're much nicer than the original. And she was, blushing and a bit embarrassed. So they have just enough personality to not only seem more than just soulless pacifistas, but they have enough personality in them to come to terms with decisions that they can make for themselves without being told to. So this is already a much better version of the pacifistas that we saw before. Remember, those were just prototypes. Sure, they may have tons of pacifistas, but the Seraphim are far more advanced than the pacifistas in terms of personality, decision making. Because when it comes to pacifistas, they only run on one specific programming. That is apprehend pirates, and that's it. Apprehend pirates and follow the orders of those who are ordering them. That's it. But the Seraphim have enough free will, not a whole lot of free will, but enough free will to be able to make unique decisions of their own, which is why they were able to go up and join Lucci and Stussy without them actually saying anything. And as this is going on, Edison and Lilith are still steadily trying to make their way over to fight CP0, and Sanji wants to go out there as well, but he really wants to go out. He's saying, actually, he's perfectly okay with Zoro fighting out there by himself, saying, like, so sad, Mosshead dies in the line of duty just before we reach the One Piece. Because, Sanji has absolutely no chill concerning the well-being of Zoro, unless it is absolutely necessary, or, Robin and Nami order him to, which is what she does. You're going to. This is trouble for the whole crew. And then Sanji, being the, dude whose nose is wide open for every woman he comes across, goes like, this Sanji Fim is absolutely loyal to all of Nami's orders. And then Sanji is also going, do we really have to save him, though? And Frankie goes with him, saying, don't second guess it, Twirly Fim, this is serious. Then it cuts to Brook and Zoro, as we see that Kaku has awakened his own devil fruit. Remember, the dude is a giraffe now, but now he's awakened and he's fighting Zoro with a nose pistol. And, of course, he can use Haki as well, as the tip of his nose is jet black. And then he uses a move called Kilimanjaro, which causes him to spin his body around to hit Zoro multiple times. And Zoro says, I just got done fighting plenty of wriggling things back in Wano. At this point, it's getting tired. And he sends Kaku flying straight down to the ground. And then Lucci gives the order of destroy the lab before Vegapunk comes out. And that's when all the Seraphim begin to just lay waste to the lab that everyone is still inside. S-Shark slices through the roof of the labo phase. S-Bear uses Urusushoku on the place as well, and all the other Seraphim are just sending blasts out to try and destroy the lab while all the rest of the Straw Hats are still inside. And as this is going on, we have Kaku saying, now that's quite a light show. Go ahead and finish our mission for us. And then all of a sudden, we see an individual just stealthily appear right next to Kaku and bite him in the neck. And then Kaku is just rendered unconscious completely. And this surprises Lucci, as we see this individual standing next to Kaku, and this individual is Stussy, who we now find out is the clone of Miss Buckingham Stussy, a former member of the Rocks Pirates, and also the Mads clone experiment successful subject number 1, Stussy, which means that every clone that we've seen from anyone affiliated with Mads, such as the massive clone army of Germa, is basically a result of the success of Stussy. Stussy, as we know it, is a successful clone of one of the former Rocks Pirates, and she's incredibly strong because she rendered Kaku unconscious completely with just one bite. Now, it's still unknown if this is a facet of her cloning genetics or if she does in fact have a devil fruit power that allows her to do this. We don't know. All we know is that she's a clone of one of the former members of the most powerful pirate crew that existed before Roger and Garp. So, yeah. Which means that when it was talking about in the beginning, when it was talking about when it was in the narration saying that even if the world doesn't agree, I know that she is a living, breathing person, a true and undeniable human being, it was a success. I am certain of it, and this is one great step towards the creation of world peace. Vegapunk was talking about the successful cloning of Stussy. Even if the world doesn't see her as a living, breathing person, even if the world doesn't agree, I know that she is a living, breathing person. The successful clone of Buckingham Stussy. There's also the theory that Bonnie is a Big Mom clone. That's interesting. I gotta figure out why this thing does not... I wonder why chat just keeps putting on like the long lines here off on the side. Why does it keep doing that? Because it keeps not showing. Yo, Neil Johnson! It is really weird how it's not acting right. Hold on, let me refresh the page. Because this thing is distracting me. I want to be able to talk to you guys and it update properly. Like it's supposed to. Without me having to go back and refresh it so it doesn't look weird on the playback. It's odd. Alright, hopefully that'll go through. So we find out that Stussy is a clone of Buckingham Stussy, who we then, confirm and find out is actually... Well, we find out in the next chapter. So let me go through the notes real quick. For this whole chapter. It's a bit extensive. Bonnie catches Vegapunk and turns him into a child. Kuma starts climbing the red line. As a result, the Marines are dispatched. Repeated cannon fire makes Kuma fall back to the ground, though he starts to fight back. Bonnie encounters one of Kuma's paw-shaped repulsions inside a room in Vegapunk's laboratory, which she recognizes as her father's memories. The repulsed memory were part of an experiment Vegapunk conducted on Kuma after the former begged the latter to participate in it. Vegapunk tries to prevent Bonnie from accessing Kuma's memories due to a promise he made to the former warlord. According to Vegapunk, Kuma willingly gave up his own free will while participating in the Pacifista project. Then Zoro and Kaku's fight continues. Kaku is shown to have awakened his devil fruit power. Because if I go over here to the Ushi Ushi no Mi, model giraffe, and we go to his awakening, Upon awakening, the user's human beast form undergoes a physical transformation where their size increases, their body becomes slimmer, their already long neck becomes longer, and dark flame forms a mane down the user's back, arms, neck. Why do I keep wanting to say legs? Back, arms, neck, and chin, plus a stream of floating dark flame wraps around the user's shoulders. Unique among Zoan fruits, most notable animal-based ones, according to Shaka, this awakening should have taken control of the user's personality, but Kaku maintained his. Despite the increase in power, the user's long neck remains an exploitable weakness. Now, if I go down here to the move that Kaku can do in this state, his new move is Kilimanjaro. After extending his neck to a great length using Bigan, Kaku rotates it rapidly, creating cutting wind slashes. As noted by Zoro, this is similar to Kaido's Tatsumaki Kaifu technique in his dragon form. The name of the technique is a pun on Kilimanjaro and Gyro. So there's that going on. Hold on, let me go back to it. Here we go. I had to go back to the notes. Kaku is shown to have awakened his devil fruit. The Seraphim join CP0 at the Labo phase and start destroying the laboratory on Lucci's orders. According to Shaka, the Seraphim are capable of limited decision-making, not requiring orders to act in certain circumstances. Lilith and Edison, being Vegapunk's satellites, use the opportunity to try taking over authority over the Seraphim personally. Sanji and Frankie head out as well to back them up. And then Stussy is revealed to be a Mads-developed clone of former Rocks Pirates member Miss Buckingham Stussy. Stussy renders Kaku unconscious by biting his neck, and she intends to silence Lucci as well. And she is shown to have bat-like wings on her back. Now, like I said, we don't know if this is her having a devil fruit power or not. Fun fact, the first two syllables of Kilimanjaro is also a pun on kidding, the Japanese word for giraffe. So yeah, it's multiple puns. Multiple puns. I don't know why this keeps acting this way, where it won't update chat real quick. Hold on. Let me do this one thing. Let me try something out real quick to see if it'll refresh properly. Let me try this one thing real quick. All right, let me test something out. All right, let's see if it pops up without incident. Nope, it's weird. Why is chat acting this way? Is it working now? Is it fine? Like, I don't want what you guys are saying to be obscured and it not show up at all. See, I put that in, but now on my screen, if you guys can see on the screen, it just appears as like dots underneath where you guys are saying. It's very distracting because it takes away, because then you guys won't be able to see what you are actually saying while I'm doing this. It is incredibly annoying when you guys can't see what you're saying. We need to keep on. We need to keep going. We need to keep going. I mean, we can always look at the chat box. True. That's true. You know, that's true. That's true. I just have it up there because, you know, this side of the wall doesn't have much up there, so I gotta have the chat on the side as well. It's just like it's an aesthetic thing for me. It's an aesthetic thing for me. It's an aesthetic thing. I'm big on aesthetics, and that's why I had a little bit of a hard time. Okay, all right. So that was chapter 1072. Now we move on to the last chapter we got this month, and it was by far one of the biggest chapters of One Piece in quite a while. And it cuts to silence as Kaku is just lying there. It's annoying. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it when it doesn't work. I'm sorry. I don't like it when it doesn't work. At least there's a refresh button. Wow, I keep forgetting that there's an actual refresh button I can hit. That'll make everything look nice. All right. So, in chapter 1073, Kaku is unconscious. Lucci's wondering, I can't wrap my head around this. Lucci is confused, and he has like a bead of sweat next to him. And as he says, I can't wrap my head around this, he tries to instantly kill Stussy without even a moment's hesitation. And Stussy just, just instant transmissions from his view and is like standing away from him. Is just standing away from him like part paper art after image. So when you don't understand something, your first move is to kill it. And Stussy just flexes. Stussy completely flexes on Lucci in an instant. Like, she's just standing there as she's smiling, wiping blood from her mouth after, chomping down on Kaku's neck. Lucci tries to kill her, and she just instantly substitution jutsu's out of there, and she's standing there with her back towards Lucci, no less. And before Lucci can even do anything, he gets poked in the neck by this lipstick dispenser that is tipped in sea prism stone in Kairoseki. And then she uses this opportunity to show like massive pointed teeth on the bottom and uppers, like massive sharp teeth, and bites down immediately on Lucci and renders him unconscious. And then she says, I'm not stupid enough to fight fair against men as powerful as you two, but you'll forgive me, won't you? And then it cuts to Zoro, who's looking at this whole ordeal as Brook is watching this whole ordeal. They're all confused. And then Stussy starts speaking, acknowledging that she is in fact the one that's been speaking to Vegapunk this entire time. Stussy has never looked finer. Psycho, good to see you. Of all the 6 powers, paper art was originally the one that caught my interest the most, but dodging isn't big in One Piece. It isn't. It really isn't as big as you would think, because most of the time you see people, it's more either defense or straight attack. But evasion is not something that is as big as full-on, attacking or defending yourself. Like, it's not really that major. Sure, you got people that dodge, but it's never as big as seeing someone use like an overly large AoE attack or being able to just stand there and take full-on hits. We've seen examples of overwhelming power and overwhelming defense. Kaido, Big Mom, Luffy. And then we've seen these examples before, but when it comes to evasion, the last time we saw someone with a maximum level of evasion was Katakuri. Sure, we've had a lot of people show their dodging skills, and it's been really good, but Katakuri was the last big person we saw whose evasion skills were really high up there. And then we don't have another example like that. It's just back to regular dodging and everything, but never to the point of just straight up finessing people. It's actually been that long. And if I'm wrong, please someone correct me. but dodging is not dodging and looking like overly skillful like dodging, like Sunny Legend from Twitter, when they always upload these high skill gameplay clips where they're always dodging and expertly attacking other people, especially if they're in their Devil May Cry 5 gameplay shorts. Just the skillful level of dodging, it's like, why don't we see more of this? But Stussy reveals herself to be the one that Vegapunk was talking to a chapter before. This is Stussy, the other two are asleep now. And then everyone is confused, as everyone is noting that Stussy just single-handedly took down Lucci. Note how funny this is. Lucci does not acknowledge Luffy as an emperor, even though the entire world does. And Lucci didn't stand a chance against Luffy, who was just manhandling the dude in Gear 5 with little to no effort at all. Then Luffy leaves. They chase after him, but it's Stussy who just one-shots him. She doesn't fight him. She doesn't go hand-to-hand. She just hits him in the weak spot and then knocks him out. Just hits him with this, like, so effortless. It's so effortless. Like, you see Lucci going all out, doing his very best to try and beat up Luffy, and you see all these great examples of new Dawn moves from Luffy. You see these new moves from Lucci, and then Stussy just comes up, sticks a little bit of lipstick into his neck, renders him paralyzed, and just bites him in the neck, and that's all she wrote. Didn't even take 5 seconds. It didn't even take 5 seconds. She just came in, boop, chomp, sleep. That's all it was. It wasn't no drawn-out battle. It was just so effortless. So then the rest of the Straw Hat crew find out that she's actually been working with Vegapunk for the past 20 years. For undercover work. So all this time of her being known as the information broker and underground broker. There was that one panel where Kaido dodged Snake Man through Future Sight. Yes, there's one example of him using that, but that's just him leaning to the side. When it comes to just effortlessly dodging all the time, Katakuri is the one who I honestly believe went all out in terms of dodging literally everything. But that's just Kaido leaning to the. That's just Kaido leaning to the side. I mean, dodging things in a super agile way, not just like move to the side or stuff like that, but be super agile while you're dodging. I had to be specific. But they find out that she's actually been working with Vegapunk for over 20 years. For 20 years, yeah, over 20 years. And this shocks everyone, that the fact that she was in Cypherpole this whole time, even though it was not the intention. She was meant to spy, but not actually wind up joining them and then becoming... it just shows you how dedicated clone Stussy is, due to the fact that she managed to infiltrate into Cypherpole and rise through the ranks to the highest degree, all the way up to CP0. And no one suspected anything until right now, which just shows you how good she is at espionage and infiltration, possibly even more than Robin. And Robin has been doing this for so long. Robin has basically been doing this whole survive on her own and be a spot and just spying and gathering information, a perfect secret agent, pretty much the majority of her life, even though she's never been in Cypherpole. But Stussy's been doing this for so long. And then Stussy says, but we have a problem, Doctor. Lucci and I are on the same auditory level. I can't override the orders he gave the Seraphim. There's no way to stop them. You did enough, Stussy. We're on our own here. And then Edison and Lilith are still heading to the front as both S-Bear and S-Shark prepare to, keep shooting at the lab. And then Zoro says, that's exactly, indeed, but tell me, don't they seem familiar to you? And then Zoro says, that's exactly what I was thinking, especially one guy in particular. And as they get outside, Lilith is the first one to get out there as she says, yes, freedom, hey, Seraphim. And then one of the Seraphim looks up at Lilith, and the Seraphim that looks up at her is the Seraphim of Mihawk. If you put your back towards your enemy, you must be pretty strong. That's what I'm saying, Psycho. How strong is Stussy? Well, the thing is, Stussy does say that she's not powerful enough to take on both of them at once. So of course she had to use some underhanded tactics. She says she's not stupid enough to fight fair against men as powerful as you two, both Kaku and Lucci, which means that she's strong, but apparently not strong enough to take on both Lucci and Kaku at the same time. So she had to resort to, being very sneaky and underhanded in order to get the drop on both of them. But the fact that she was able to get the drop on both of them, and both of them can use observation haki? Like, both of them are already super in tune with their ability to use haki, period. So that means that their observation haki must be in tune to them as well. And they didn't realize what was going on until it was too late. Which means that either she's very good at sensing, she's very good at hiding her intent from them. Because as Rayleigh and Grandpa Hyo have stated, your emotional state can in fact affect your ability to use observation haki. And since Lucci was basically pretty much calm until the moment he saw Kaku fall over, it makes you wonder just how good is Stussy at hiding her presence to the point where Lucci could not tell what was going on until after Kaku fell to the ground. Because otherwise, in any other case, observation haki would have been used and they would have been able to detect Stussy. But Stussy slipped right past him. But we get to Lilith outside. She screams, "Hey, Seraphim," and Seraphim Mihawk sees her and sends a slash her way, but is then intercepted by Zoro, who immediately clashes with him. Now remember, the Seraphim are big. So Zoro is clashing with Seraphim Mihawk, who is the exact same size as him. And Seraphim Mihawk is glaring at Zoro, shocked that someone was able to hold his sword back. As Zoro says, "Now that I get a better look at you, you're actually a little more human than him." So, what does it mean? What do you think that means when Zoro looks at a clone of Mihawk that was genetically engineered to be stronger, and he sees Mihawk as less human than the Seraphim genetic clone? Just how monstrous is Mihawk to Zoro for him to look at Mihawk's clone and says, like, "Yeah, you're more human than him." And then they both clash with each other as Zoro is sent flying back after the clash as he goes, "So who are you?" And then it cuts to Lilith, who survived, with Edison flying out going, "Seraphim, stop fighting right now!" As S-Shark aims where Edison is, as he gives this order, Sanji saves him. And in that instance, all the Seraphim now fall back under the control of Vegapunk and the satellites. And since Kaku and Lucci are down, and Stussy says, "I've placed Sea Prism Stone on Lucci and Kaku," they can't transform anymore, which means they're only left with what strength they have. Now, mind you, Sea Prism Stone be draining people's life like crazy. It be draining the strength of Devil Fruit users crazily, unless you've had it on you for a while and you had to steadily get used to working with it, as is the case with Kid and Luffy, when they were in Udon and they had to, work while also not having access to their Devil Fruit powers. So, Lucci and Kaku are pretty much out of commission right now. And the Seraphim are now back under the control of the Vegapunks, which means an enormous fighting force is on the side of the Straw Hats and Vegapunk versus Cypher Pole, who are still trying to go after them. I gotta refresh this every time. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna figure out why chat is acting this way. It means Mihawk is a full-on monster. It really does. Think about it. If he's calling the clone more human than Mihawk, then Mihawk has got to be way beyond the Seraphim. And maybe that whatever trauma made Mihawk the man he is was even more powerful motivator than just being made to be a weapon like S-Hawk. Maybe. Maybe. But going back to it, apparently Stussy is going to be escaping with the Vegapunks as well, along with the Seraphim. So, I mean, I don't know if there's enough room on the Sunny for all these Seraphim to be up there, but, I mean, it's going to be a long trip with Vegapunk, the Seraphim, and Stussy on there as well, even though I'm pretty sure Sanji would love the idea. And then it cuts to Luffy and Chopper, who are looking for Bonnie and Vegapunk. And then it says, but an incident had occurred. Dr. Vegapunk's Stella was nowhere to be found. And note that it doesn't say Bonnie wasn't nowhere to be found either. It just says that Dr. Vegapunk, the main Dr. Vegapunk, was nowhere to be found. Not Bonnie, not just Bonnie, not including Bonnie, but only the main body of Vegapunk. Then it cuts to Sphinx as we get a recounting of events that happened. And during that time, some Marines who are basically pirates themselves came in saying, like, behave yourselves and no one has to get hurt. This country is unaffiliated with the world government. The law doesn't protect you here. We know Whitebeard left a vast treasure here. If you don't tell us where it is, that's grounds for execution. So these money-grubbing Marines show up on Whitebeard's home island of Sphinx in the New World, looking for his treasure, hoping to get their hands on it, saying that since they're unaffiliated, the law doesn't protect you here, so we're here to just take we're here to take all of Whitebeard's treasure. Just because they can. And as they point a gun at a kid, they threaten kids and they even threaten a grandma. But before that happens, Edward Weevil shows up saying, leave my dad dada. Not daddies. Leave my dada's hometown alone. And then it cuts to Weevil knocking every single one of these Marines into a far-off mountain range with extreme force. Remember, this is a Bacento that he's using, which means some of them are getting sliced. So they get sent flying, and then the Marines try to call for backup simply because Weevil is there. And they do, in fact, call for backup, because it turns out that Ryokugyu came by, fought with Weevil, and then apprehended him, much to the sad state of Stussy. Buckingham Stussy, the real one, former Rocks pirates and self-styled scientist, Mads freeloader Buckingham Stussy. And she says, hold on. She says, and who do you think came after that with all the Marines? She says, Admiral Ryokugyu showed up, and all our efforts were in vain. He took my Weevil away. Get my son back, and while you're at it, hand over the estate of the Whitebeard Newgate. And it's like, I don't know why you still keep going over this whole thing of you deserve the treasures of Whitebeard, because one of y'all said, what if Weevil is a failed clone of Whitebeard? Is a failed clone of Whitebeard that Stussy tried to make, and therefore she sees Whitebeard as his father. And therefore, that's grounds for her and Weevil to have whatever treasure that Whitebeard had when he died. It's kind of crazy. But Stussy cries, saying, sent to prison for protecting his own father's village, my poor sweet boy, my son with Newgate. See, one thing that keeps putting the brakes on me thinking that her and Whitebeard were an actual thing is the fact that she keeps going out of her way to say that my son with Newgate, my son's father. Like, you don't need to say that all the time if this was true. You shouldn't have to include this statement in every sentence you have about your boy to convince people that he's Whitebeard's son. You wouldn't have to do that. Unless you're trying to convince people that it's true and gaslight them into thinking that it's true, just so people can say, like, you know what? He is his son. No, it's questionable. It's been questionable the moment she showed up. Which harkens back to the theory that one of y'all had, saying that Whitebeard is not his father, but maybe his DNA donor that allowed Stussy to clone him. Because every chance she gets, like, I keep looking at this sentence: sent to prison for protecting his own father's village, my poor sweet boy, my son with Newgate. And Stussie's over here saying, you don't believe that Whitebeard and Weevil are really related, do you, Marco? And I honestly may have to go with the theory that Weevil is a failed clone of Whitebeard, made by Stussie. Because if it was made by Vegapunk, then it'd probably be a lot more successful. But because she's known as a mad freeloader, self-styled scientist, which even harkens more to the theory that Weevil may be, in fact, be a Whitebeard clone, because if she calls herself a scientist because of Weevil, but she's not actually a scientist herself and she was just a freeloader, then that gives more validity to the theory that he's probably a failed clone of Whitebeard. But yeah, she says, you don't believe that Whitebeard and Weevil are really related, do you, Marco? Well, I know just the person who can prove it to you, and that's Dr. Vegapunk. And then it cuts to some marine ships that are escorting a world government ship. And we see Kizaru, serving some tea to someone. And that person is one of the Gorosei, whose name is finally revealed to us after so many years. 5 elders, highest authority in the world, Saint J. Garcia Saturn. And apparently he has history of Vegapunk, as Kizaru's asked, just out of curiosity, have you ever met Dr. Vegapunk before? And Saint J. Garcia says, Saint Saturn says, I have, just once a long time ago, but I must say that I find this turn of events to be most regrettable. And that is the last thing we got of One Piece in the month of January. So if I go over to the notes here, we have Lucci and Stussie have a short battle, with Stussie successfully biting Lucci, knocking him out. Stussie is revealed to have been an undercover spy for Vegapunk for the last 2 decades, and is confirmed to have also been the one to whom Vegapunk had secretly contacted to help them. Shaka requests that Stussie joins Vegapunk in the satellite's journey with Straw Hats, to which she agrees. The Seraphim stop attacking the Labo phase after Edison is able to regain control of them. Marco has returned to Phoenix. While he was gone, the Marines arrived to confiscate Whitebeard's treasure. Edward Weevil fought the Marines away from the island, but was captured by Ryokugyu. Buckingham Stussie is on the island and speaks with Marco, demanding that he save Weevil. Buckin is revealed to be a scientist and a former member of MADS. Buckin claims that Vegapunk can prove that Weevil is indeed Whitebeard's son. And then lastly, the identity of one of the 5 elders is revealed, J. Garcia Saturn. J. Garcia Saturn is accompanying Kizaru to Egghead, and he claims to have met Vegapunk a long time ago. Now, if we go to J. Garcia Saturn here, one of the things that makes this significant is when you go to his page, it says he was named in the Egghead arc, being the first and so far the only one of the 5 elders currently named. Along with the other elders, he is an overarching antagonist of the entire One Piece series. Now, if we go to the Gorosei right now, and then look up the very first appearance of the Gorosei, which was a little while after Luffy beat Crocodile in Alabasta, which was a long time ago indeed. Why did I say indeed? Which was a long time ago. It was all the way back in chapter 233 in episode 151 when the Gorosei were first seen. And this was all the way back in June 10th, 2002. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. That's actually significant when you think about it. It's been 20 years since the first introduction. It's been a 20-year gap, 2 decades, the same amount of time that Stussie has been an infiltrator for Vegapunk all this time. The same amount of time it's been for Stussie to be an infiltrator for Vegapunk is how long it's been since the Gorosei have been introduced, and we're just now getting a name reveal of just one of their members. Guess it takes 3 to 5 days to get from Marijois to Egghead since we last saw Saturn during the Lelouja incident. Yeah, it must take a while to get there. But I say again, It's been 20 years. 2002, you only started reading One Piece in 2005. It's been 20 years since the Godosei were introduced. And in the last chapter of One Piece in the new year of 2023, we are just now getting the name of just one of these elders. Just one. 20 years. People wondering who they were. What their significance was. Was that one dude with the blonde hair who looks the youngest out of everyone Sanji's father? That was proven wrong many years later. But 20 years of not knowing who these guys were except for the highest authority in the world, who serve an even higher authority. I was caught up right when the Scabbards attacked Kaido in 907. I had to go back and reread One Piece to say that I was fully caught up. It took a while. But to finally get one of the names of these elders, 20 years of them being introduced, and now we're getting more information. So, overall, these were fantastic chapters of One Piece. I say this because Oda is done preparing for the final stretch of One Piece. He's done. He's already finalized it to make sure that it reaches that satisfying conclusion that he's looking for. But Oda is done worrying about how he's going to fix the ending, because he already took a break for that. Now we're in the phase of Oda just dropping knowledge on us. I mean, who would have thought that Bonnie was the daughter of Kuma? Who would have thought that we'd be seeing Vegapunk right now? Who would have thought that Stussy, after all this time of seeing her first introduced in the Whole Cake Island arc and seeing her periodically throughout different places, who would have thought that she was a clone of a former member of the Rocks Pirates? Who would have thought that we'd be seeing one of the Godosei personally heading to Egghead with escorted by Kizaru? Who would have thought that we would see one of them actually leave Marijois for the first time? We've never seen them in any other room except for their main meeting room and the main throne room of the Empty Throne. Those are the only two places we have seen the Godosei actually go to anywhere. And now we have one of these members who is out to sea, with just Kizaru following him. With just Kizaru there to escort him. That's it. And then we get the name reveal. So my thing is, this is the time where Oda is going to be revealing so much One Piece to all of us. I'm going to keep refreshing this page. It's going to get annoying after a while. This is the time where Oda is going to be revealing so much about One Piece to all of us. We are just now learning the names of one of the Godosei. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be something, and it's going to be a major time for the theorists out there when we get the official name of all the rest of the elders. Because there's a theory going around, like, I don't know if it was one of you, it was either Karma or Gata-san or someone else who came up with the theory of all the names of the Godosei are based on planets, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, but we don't know anything about the Godosei, how they are currently. My thing is, they're the 5 elders. Are they the only ones? Or were there 5 elders before them? These are things that we don't know. Ain't it odd that we only know of the Godosei, the people who helped govern the entire world, but we don't even know if the Godosei iteration we see right now was the first and only one, or if there were multiple people beforehand, and these guys are the new people who are filling in this position. When did the Godosei get established? Those are so many. I feel like if we learn the history of the Godosei, we learn the history of the world government itself, and thus the history of the world, because the world government took it over. The information about the Godosei is always significant, because every time they show up. Matter of fact, let me do this. Let me go down to every chapter when they're mentioned. All right. So, they're mentioned in Volume 90, Chapter 907, the five elders are confirmed to be the most prominent celestial dragons. Oh, so they are! They are celestial dragons. Oh, wow, I was wrong. Someone said yesterday that they're celestial dragons, and I told them that they were not. I was wrong. Because these are the references of all the chapters they've been mentioned. Let's see. 1P. Five elders are confirmed to be the most prominent celestial dragons. The five elders' name is romanized. Clover speaks to the five elders. The tall mustache man is the only member of the five elders that spoke, and that's over in episode 277. Volume 79, chapter 793. The five elders and Fleet Admiral Sakazuki have disconcerted reactions to the Straw Hat Pirates Alliance and Fujitora's decision to expose the seven warlords of the sea system corruption. Like, we have all this information. The earliest being the five elders speak of the situation of Shanks and Whitebeard. Matter of fact, if I go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then 18. 18 being they alluded that there were other past Godosei in chapter 1037. So including the recent chapter that we got at the end of January, that marks 17 times in the 1073 chapters of One Piece, in the 20 years of One Piece, that we've seen the Godosei. 18 times. 20 years. 20 years. Who knows how many Sundays out of each individual year. And we've only seen the Godosei 18 times throughout the story. But every single time they show up, it's always significant. Because if I go back to it, Shanks requests a private meeting with the five elders to discuss an important matter. M sits atop upon the empty throne and listens to the five elders' question about who is the next person to be eliminated. Five elders order a stop to the distribution of a wanted poster. The five elders orders the Marines to forget about what Sabo had said. As a matter of fact, let's just read over the whole history of the Godosei. Because it's right here. Past. Nothing is known of their earlier lives and how they became the leaders of the world government. And how they became the leaders of the world government is also unknown, aside that they are the highest ranked celestial dragons. Like I said, I was wrong. I'm not ashamed to admit that. They are, in fact, celestial dragons. They're just celestial dragons of the highest degree. Their membership and appearances have not altered at least in the last 22 years when they ordered the Buster Call against Ohara since citizens break a capital law of the government, and that they were not going to allow it. After Clover confronted the five elders, one of the elders who communicated through Denden Mushi recognized the archaeologist and recognized him for his great contribution to universal culture, lamenting that he strayed from the good path. Clover claimed the right of humanity to knowing the story and that no one had the right to deny them the old, untold truth. The old counter-argument that if they read the poneglyphs, they would resurrect the ancient weapons leading the world to its doom. Clover stated again that was the history of humanity and that everyone has a duty to live with it. Clover began to question the poneglyphs' existence, coming to the conclusion that they had an enemy and that the people of the past did not want their message to be eradicated. As Clover began to talk about his theory about the end of the 100 years of the void and the creation of the world government, the elders asked him what he was implying. Clover concluded about the existence of a great and powerful kingdom whose information was eliminated, and that when this kingdom was going to be defeated by the future world government, they carved this knowledge in stone rune. Unaware of the threat it represented to the world government, he theorized that the key was in the name. He began to attempt to reveal the name of the kingdom removed from history, so one of the elders ordered Spandine to shoot the scholar. They then ordered the destruction of the island and extermination of its citizens. So Clover was really close to revealing the name of this ancient kingdom, but Spandine, father of Spandam, shot him. Less than 14 years ago, Spandam manipulated them to give him the authority to seek out the blueprints for Pluton. And then they appeared again. And they've been in 5 chapters in 2022 alone. 5 chapters! 5 chapters! There's 365 days in a year. Even less Sundays, but they only appeared 5 times last year. 5 times! But now they drop at the beginning of this year. So now we got to count how many times they appear this year. Ogata-san, I just really want to say thank you, firstly, for being a faithful moderator, and also for the fact that you pretty much chronologically remember all this stuff that even I can't remember as much concerning One Piece. The fact that we only saw the Gorosei 5 times and every time they showed up was significant. The main way they showed up last year was revealing that the Gum Gum fruit was actually a ancient mythical Zoan type that they've been trying to get their hands on, which was the most significant appearance of the Gorosei last year. And also them being frantic of the world finding out that the Gum Gum fruit and the appearance of Gear 5 and the awakened fruit of the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika gets revealed to the world. That's already significant. And that, and also them ordering the destruction of Lelusia, one of the nations that revolted against the world government. What do you do against a nation that revolts against you? You completely eradicate it. So many different things happened that concerned the Gorosei last year, and it was only in 5 chapters, spread across the year. So let's go back to the history of the Gorosei, because I feel like in the future of this year, this page is going to be updated with new info. So, this was their history, and this was in the past when the Gorosei was listening to Professor Clover's demands. Afterwards, we see more of them during the Sky Island saga, namely Jaya arc. The 5 elders discussed the situation about Shanks and Whitebeard. They were determined to keep Whitebeard and Shanks from making direct contact. They were also distressed with Crocodile due to his actions in Arabasta and a subsequent dismissal from the 7 warlords of the sea. And then they appeared again in Water 7 on the Longland arc. Later, they heard of Aokiji sneaking out of Marine headquarters and became disappointed in him. They remarked that he should be careful with his rank. Then they appeared again in post-Enies Lobby arc. Later, after the Enies Lobby raid, they were shocked to hear that Shanks had successfully met with Whitebeard. Then they appeared again during the Summit War saga, post-war after the Marineford War. After the Summit War of Marineford, they gathered to discuss the state the world was in. They talked about how Monkey D. Luffy has become a huge threat, as well as his relations to Garp and Dragon. One of them commented on how their power structure had almost completely collapsed, and asked how they would fill the 3 vacant warlords of the sea positions. They decided to observe world events for now until they could find influential enough people to become new warlords. They then discussed Blackbeard and his activities in the New World, mentioning that he had defeated one of the supernovas and that he was in the lead for replacing Whitebeard as one of the 4 emperors. They believed that the only people who could stop his rise to power were the 3 remaining emperors and the Whitebeard pirates who were currently under Marco's command. They also expressed concern about the will of D and that it had reached the public too much as of late. Then they appeared again during Dressrosa, during the whole thing about Doflamingo, and, Akainu was there upset that all this information was actually kept from him. Ravi, what is going on? I like the theory that and Neil, you said, I like the theory that they have satellites to aim the way Vegapunk satellites are to Stella. That'd be scary. That'd be scary if that was the case. But yeah, Ravi, we are currently going over the history of the Gorosei because I honestly feel like this year is going to have more Gorosei appearances than we had last year. The Gorosei appeared 5 times. Thank you, Ogata-san, again. 5 times last year. Let's see how many times they appear this year. I'm going over the history of the Gorosei so we can, talk about where we could possibly see them in the future. I mean, St. J. Garcia Saturn is already heading to Egghead, so we're probably going to see a lot more Gorosei if he actually, here's the thing though, we don't ever see the elders move. That's the thing. We never see them move. The only time we ever seen them move was when they kneeled before Im and left their room. That's it. That was only in one chapter when they actually moved. But any other time we see the Gorosei is when they are just, they just spend their time just sitting down, talking. Sure, they change positions, but not in the same panel. But we never see them move. Ever. So to see one of them actually get up and move and actually walk around like a normal person? But going to the Dressrosa saga in the Dressrosa arc, following the discovered falsehood behind the story about Don Quixote Doflamingo's resignation from the Seven Warlords of the Sea and abdication of his throne, Fleet Admiral Sakazuki confronted the five elders about this, where they engaged in a heated argument. Because you know, Akainu pretty much has no chill against literally anyone. He's always hot-headed, no pun intended. Actually, you know what? It is intended. Sakazuki angrily asked the elders why the whole world had to be misled for Doflamingo's sake, noting that if an incident like this were to occur again, he as fleet admiral would be disgraced. The elders ignored him, saying that they were not concerned with his reputation, as the Marines were only the public face of the world government, and that the case had been left to CP0. Sakazuki retorted that even the elders had been walked over and called them celestial dragon puppets. They responded in anger, blaming Sakazuki for Kuzan joining Blackbeard, and he's with them right now. He helped Van Augur take pudding from Whole Cake Island. Sakazuki replied that Kuzan's actions after he resigned from the Marines were not the concern of the government or the Marines. Suddenly, a Marine interrupted the meeting and reported about what transpired on Dressrosa. Much to their shock and displeasure, they learned of Doflamingo's defeat at Luffy's hands. I feel like they're incredibly tired of hearing Luffy all the time. Have I checked out the new live-action Netflix posters? I have. I need to see their faces. I saw it, and it's, it'll be interesting to see the show in motion. But they really need to hit this out of the park. The One Piece show really does need to hit it out of the park, because if it doesn't, it's just going to be another Cowboy Bebop situation. Because we already have the original creator of Cowboy Bebop saying that he couldn't look past one episode because he says, like, this is not Cowboy Bebop. The creator of Cowboy Bebop looked at the live-action show, only his first episode, and says, like, yeah, I can't do this. This is not Cowboy Bebop at all, so I'm good. The One Piece Netflix live-action show needs to hit it out of the park from the jump. Because I would hate for Oda to say, like, this is not One Piece. I couldn't think of anything more gut-wrenching to hear if Oda says, like, this is not One Piece at all. This show needs to be good. This is One Piece we're talking about. We got Bleach, we got My Hero Academia, we got One Punch Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, but One Piece is like one of the big threes. Naruto's already finished its story, but we still have, and Bleach has his 1,000-year Blood War. That's kind of already over, but we're waiting for the anime to come back because that's the definitive version of 1,000-year Blood War. But One Piece is one of the OG original big threes up there. You cannot mess this up. See a lot of reasons to be more hopeful than with other Netflix adaptations. I'm still holding my expectations in check, but I'm still feeling better than I expected I would. See, I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to say anything negative about the show. I'm not going to say anything negative about how the posters look or anything. I mean, when I look at them, I see Straw Hats. But we need to see how they are in motion. But Oda is heavily involved. Well, if Oda's involved, then I don't think we need to worry about the story. It's just, you remember how I always say we just have to wait and see what happens whenever we get to like a chapter or we have to find out? We really do need to wait and see what happens. We need a trailer. The trailer is going to set the hype level. Sure, we got posters, but the trailer is really going to set the hype level, so we got to wait until then. When they do a trailer, I am going to react to it. You already know I am. So, yeah, that's. I saw the posters, but we'll see. We will see. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket just yet. I want to see a trailer. I want to see a trailer before I say, like, you know what? I'm going to watch this show. We need to see a trailer. But going back to the Gorosei, Admiral Fujitora publicly announced Doflamingo's defeat to the world along with the exposure of the crimes he committed by abusing his warlord of the sea position. Since the announcement was given before the elders were informed of it, this prevented them from covering up the debacle, allowing the Straw Hat Pirates to take credit for exposing the Heavenly Yaksha's criminal enterprises. Then they showed up again in the Whole Cake Island arc, and that's when the big truth of their position in the world was revealed. In the Reverie arc, the five elders questioned Shanks on why he felt it was necessary to speak with them, despite the Reverie being so important and his criminal status not being appropriate for global diplomacy. They stated the only reason Shanks was granted a private audience with them was because he is one of the four emperors. Shanks expressed his gratitude, and the elders ordered their guards to leave their chambers. Shanks conveyed his desire to discuss a certain pirate, the five elders, which we still haven't figured out yet. Sometime after the reverie had formally begun, the five elders headed towards the chamber containing the empty throne as they discussed Nefertari Cobra's request to have an audience with them, even though they saw the Nefertari family as nothing more than traitors to the world nobles for choosing to stay in the world below. So the same thing that Don Quixote Homing and his wife decided to do, Nefertari Cobra and the Nefertari family pretty much did the exact same thing, and the world nobles themselves see them as nothing more than traitors, including the Gorosei. Upon arriving at the chamber of the empty throne, the five elders quickly knelt down as they greeted Im, who then proceeded to sit upon the empty throne itself. They asked him which light should disappear from history, and then they showed up again in the Wano Country arc. Later, after the reverie had ended, the five elders discussed the battle in Wano Country and how they could use the raid on Onigashima to capture Nico Robin and eliminate any other inconveniences. After they received word that Zunisha had arrived at Wano, the five elders also became concerned that the gum fruit could be awakened, which had not happened in centuries and had been covered up by the world government. They then ordered CP0 to eliminate Luffy at once due to the potential danger he possessed should he defeat Kaido, which was realized later on. After a CP0 agent interfered in Kaido and Luffy's fight, the five elders concluded that the attempt on Luffy's life was worth losing the agent and angering Kaido. They then discussed the gum fruit's true nature along with its special abilities and uniqueness. After the end of the raid on Onigashima, the five elders discussed the defeat of Kaido and Big Mom and the effect such big news will have on the world. They also noted that with Zunisha gone, Wano Country would remain closed, and they would not be able to militarily occupy the country. They then inquired about CP0's capture of Robin, which the agent affirmed, albeit nervously. 7 days later, when new bounty posters were issued, the elders contacted a Marine and angrily questioned him about a picture on one of the posters, as well as a D not being removed as they had previously requested. The Marine, because they just wanted Luffy to be called Monkey Luffy, not Monkey D. Luffy. Hey, CJ, you say you've been watching and listening for a while now, just listening and cleaning up. Yeah, I got to do a little cleaning up myself. I got to clean off my bookshelf a little bit. If it is good, they need to release a season every 18 months at worst, or they'll never finish anything. See, here's the thing. We have a One Piece anime that's 1,000 episodes in. And it takes a while to just get that stuff animated and released on a regular basis. We're now about to get a live-action One Piece show that is starting from the beginning. Think about that. We already have an anime that takes a while for a person to get through from beginning up to where it is right now in episode 1049. Now we're getting a One Piece live-action show that is going to be starting the series again from the beginning. It's going to be a minute. It's going to be a minute. Like, there's so many factors for live action that you can't really have to worry. You can't really worry about when you have regular voice actors. Like, you don't need to worry about people getting hurt during the voice acting or anything like that. But you got to concern yourself about make sure you say this line right when you come to this spot or that spot. There's a lot of logistics, a lot of physical logistics that comes with physically acting out characters. And it's going to be a long time if they're looking to try and adapt the entire story of One Piece to live action. It's going to take a while. It's going to be forever. And while people are waiting for regular episodes to drop, One Piece keeps going further and further and further down the line. So, I don't know. But going back to it, 7 days later, when new bounty posters were issued, the elders contacted a Marine and angrily questioned him about a picture on one of the posters, as well as a D not being removed as they had previously requested. Because anytime a D is up on anyone's picture, it would probably cause people to question what does the D mean, and that would kind of cause more questions to be asked about what the D means. And then the elders doesn't want anyone to know what the D actually means. Some of the Marines know, but they're under penalty of death for them to never know about it. The Marine stated that he had not heard that request and clarified that the photograph was sent by CP0 agent Gornica. In response, one of the elders demanded that the posters be reprinted, but the Marine replied that they are unable to contact the printers, so he ordered all distribution to cease immediately, but it was all in vain thanks to Big News Morgans. Now, this is the reason why Big News Morgans is one of the biggest MVPs of One Piece. He does not care. He's going to print out the truth. Not the fabricated truth to, make the world government look good. He's going to print out what's real. He does not bend the knee to the world government. Even when that one agent showed up and says, like, you're going to take this check and you're going to do what you're told, that dude got clocked. And Morgan says, like, I don't care. You can keep your money, but the world needs to know the truth. Which is why Morgan's is Big News Morgans is one of the real ones, which is why I love him so much. And as far as that goes, we have just them talking during One Piece Film Red, but that's non-canon. And then here in the final saga in Egghead arc, during Sabo's attack on the Reverie, he managed to catch sight of Im on the empty throne before escaping. When he tried to contact Dragon to report his findings, in which his call was intercepted by the Marines, the five elders ordered the surveillance division to stop the broadcast before Sabo could say any further. They then ordered the Marines to forget that any information was intercepted at all, and that the place where Sabo was hiding, Lelouch Kingdom, never existed as Im destroyed the entire island. So the reason why they cut off the surveillance is because they didn't even want their own Marines to know the name of Im or his existence. They just ordered them to forget everything you just heard. They don't even know that Im exists. They just know that someone sits on the throne. It's not as empty as you think. And then they just said, like, surveillance division, cut that off right now. So they don't get Im's name, and neither do the revolutionaries. And that's pretty much the most current information about the Gorosei at the moment in One Piece. So I go back to this, and I'll bring the stream to a close with my closing remarks for this. I go back to this. We are getting far more information on the Gorosei than we have in a very long time. Every time they show up, we get massive lore that we never knew before. The fact that one of the Gorosei is just traveling with Kizaru to Egghead right now, what's the significance of that? Why is he going there? There's so many questions about what the Gorosei's purpose for the world is, because think about it. They rule the world, but what is their end goal? They can't just expect everything to be as it is right now, just letting pirates run throughout the seas doing whatever they want to do. They have to have an end game here. I honestly feel that there is an end game here that the Gorosei have not acknowledged yet. Because every big villain in these big Shonen Jump mangas always have one. Aizen wants to become the new Soul King, and then take over all of existence, which is the reason why he did what he did. Then you have Madara Uchiha wanted to bring about an infinite Tsukuyomi so that everyone can live out so he can stop war, but it was really a plan to bring back Kaguya Otsutsuki because of Black Zetsu. Then you have... what's another good one? Then you have Kenjaku in Jujutsu Kaisen, who's having this whole culling game that's going right now in order to bring about a world where only Jujutsu sorcerers exist. And then you have My Hero Academia, where All For One and Shigaraki are just... All For One wants to rule the entire world by taking One For All and pretty much bringing the entire world to heel. Shigaraki just wants to destroy the world and all of society that pretty much made his world get flipped upside down with his upbringing and everything that turned him into the man that he is right now. That's My Hero Academia. There's so many different series where the big bads have an end game that they're always trying to strive towards that means utter destruction or utter chaos for the heroes. My question is, what is the Gorosei's end game? Because simply just having the world continue as it is, people just hopelessly and haplessly believing everything you say as a world government, it cannot be the end that they're trying to seek. There has to be an end game here that they just haven't said yet. Every big villain has one. But the Gorosei have been tight-lipped on what because they never talk about the future. They only talk about the current world events and the past, but they've never talked about what they intend to do for the future of the world. Ever. That has never been discussed by the Gorosei. They've always talked about like things that are currently going on right now or things that have happened in the past, but they never speak about what they intend to do about the future. So my thing is, what is the big end game for the Gorosei that they're trying to achieve out of everything right now? Aizen would lose versus the real Soul King Brook, though I would like to see that concert. Brook would go through every single opening of Bleach just to annoy Aizen. But that's just my question. Now that the Gorosei are showing up way more than they have in the past 20 years. Ain't that crazy? The Gorosei are showing up now than they have in the past 20 years of this story being a thing. I really hope we learn. I wouldn't say I really hope we learn soon what the Gorosei's end goal is, but I feel like we're going to learn more about the Gorosei and who they are as individuals before we get to Elbaf. Because I know Elbaf is probably going to be one of the next locations we go to. Now, that doesn't mean that Elbaf is going to be the exact location we go to after Egghead is done, but I know we're going to Elbaf. But I honestly feel like we'll probably get a whole bunch more Gorosei lore before we get to Elbaf. And it makes me wonder, what do the Gorosei do when one of their members leaves? Do they all leave too? Or are they just chilling, waiting for St. J. Garcia to come back? Are they just chilling in their room? What are they doing? The way I see the Gorosei, they remind me so much. You know what? I just realized something. The Gorosei remind me so much of how the delightful children from down the lane tend to act. They're always in the same place in unison. It's very rare to see them separated from one another. The only example of that, of them separating, is when one of their own, which is the dude with the football helmet on his head, was pretending to be an ally for the kids next door, which turned out to be false, and they joined back together, and they're just together again. The Delightful Children brings back memories. It really does. It really does. I'm so upset that we don't have a Codename Kids Next Door complete DVD or Blu-ray set, because I would buy that. I'd buy Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog. There's so many good shows from Cartoon Network that have not been released on a full, complete series set yet that I need to add. But that's just how the Gorosei reminds me of. They think similarly. They operate similarly. They always travel together, but this is the first time we see one of them separating from the pack and is just traveling on his own. Now, Saint J. Garcia says that he knew Vegapunk in the past, and it's actually we were spoiled with the cartoons we grew up on. We really were. We really were. We had Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Well, whatever happened to Robot Jones, Sheep in the Big City? I could keep going. This like cartoons are not what they used to. Cartoons are not what they used to be. Shows are not what they used to be. Shows like I was about to say shows, but I stopped in the middle of it, so it kind of sounds something. But shows like Adventure Time and The Amazing World of Gumball, they're shows that were able to continue on just a little while longer. But it's like I'm getting off subject here, but Cartoon Network, I miss the Cartoon Network we had in the mid 2000s when you had Samurai Jack and Codename Kids Next Door, Dexter's Lab. Even though that was a 90s show, still so many good shows. But to see the Godosei separate and seeing one of them just leave Marie-Joie completely, like who would have ever thought we would ever see the elders of Marie-Joie leave Marie-Joie? They've only ever been there. We've never seen them outside of the Holy Land at all. We've never seen them leave. Feeling a bit old having grown up on Batman the Animated Series and Gargoyles. Oh, I remember watching Gargoyles too. I also remember, what was it? Jet Cats? What was that show called? The show where these two it's not Thundercats, but it was like what is it? And it's not Top Cat either, even though I watched that all the time. Top Cat, do 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 do, the original Top Cat, do 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 do. The intellectual mole's friends get to call him TC. Sorry. It's just you're taking me back. SWAT Cats. Thank you, Ogata. I watched SWAT Cats so often. It was my favorite show. I thought, like, man, I would watch the show and I would think, I want to be a fighter pilot just from watching SWAT Cats. I loved watching SWAT Cats. You know, these regular mechanics are secretly like fighter pilots, and no one knows who they are. It's like I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look it up when I'm done with this stream. It's like how many 90s. I'm gonna look up how many 90s shows I actually watched growing up, because it'll be able to tell me. It'll be able to tell me just how far back my memory goes for cartoons, because I remember a lot of it. The most oldest cartoon memory I have was watching the Dumb and Dumber cartoon. A matter of fact, hold on. Hold on. What? What do you mean the Dumb and Dumber cartoon was something back in 1995? How do I remember that? That was... What? I remember all the way back to 1995? Unfortunately, it was canceled after one season. Okay, we need to get back on track. So, we got the Godosei making moves. Actually making moves that we haven't seen them do at all. Big moves. Enough for them to actually leave the Holy Land and travel all the way to Egghead. Which makes me wonder, and I believe one of y'all brought this up already, the fact that one of them left Marie-Joie and is currently traveling with Kizaru in order to get to Egghead, which makes me think, just how close is Marie-Joie to Egghead for one of the elders to see fit to leave and go visit Vegapunk all on their own? So many questions. Sorry, I was just kind of listening to my own playback to make sure the audio was fine. But so many questions. We had 3 chapters in the month of January, and I have to say that these were some of the best chapters that we've got of One Piece. Mind you, these are the first 3 chapters of One Piece we got in this year, so I can only imagine what February is going to bring, what March is going to bring, April, May, June, July. What is this entire year going to do for One Piece? Because it's anyone's guess, and yet every single time, Oda keeps bringing back fire chapter after fire chapter. I'm going to say this. There were some pacing issues with some of the chapters during the whole cake. I'll be on the lookout for the new One Punch Man chapter. They might release it tomorrow. I'll keep it in mind. Don't worry. I'm not doing any gaming streaming tomorrow. So if that chapter drops, I'll be able to do that one. Because I'm not playing Forspoken again until Thursday. Because I'm currently going through power leveling right now. And I am getting strong. Really strong. So I'll keep an eye out for the One Punch Man chapter should it drop tomorrow. So thank you for that, Ogata-san. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to put that page up after I'm done so that way it can be up for me. But there's just, I will admit, during the Wano arc of One Piece last year, there were some pacing issues where it kept cutting back to people fighting that should have already ended their fight already. Like, how long did we spend on Raizo and Fukudo Kuju, and we just cut back to them consistently? Like, they were just standing there, trying to paralyze each other and let the flames, hit each other, and then Fukudo Kuju gets beaten after a while. How long did that fight go for? How many chapters did that fight last? I honestly felt like that was by far one of the most dragging elements of Wano. 33 chapters. 33 chapters of Raizo versus Fukudo Kuju when it could have been ended in at least 3 or 4 if they really wanted to pack it down. Because there really wasn't much happening between Raizo and Fukudo Kuju. Sure, it started with them fighting at the beginning, but then it just ended with them just standing there, paralyzing one another, and just standing there. Panels were dedicated to seeing Raizo and Fukudo Kuju just standing in one place as they slowly got set on fire. And then it would continue with them just standing there as the fire was burning them. Other interesting fights were happening while Raizo and Fukudo Kuju were just standing there, eating up panels. Still. Just the whole time. So that was by far one of the biggest pacing issues I had with Wano. But once Wano was over and Raizo's fight was finally over, the pacing got better. And now, after we got done with all the things that happened in Wano, I honestly feel like Oda has not only improved on the pacing, but it also feels like he's kind of sped up the pacing as well, because so many things have been happening in these individual chapters. Then we 33 chapters of their fight going, and we only saw them in 7 chapters. 7 chapters in total of them just standing there. Some of those chapters of them just standing there. But their fight spread out across 33 chapters from the moment they started to the moment they stopped. But only 7 of them was actually them being shown. But there's so much information that's being packed into all of these chapters that Oda has been showing us this entire time that it feels like Oda, I wouldn't say Oda's rushing, but he is giving us a lot of information at once that we would normally see spread across several chapters. Now we're getting more chapters, we're getting more information in 2 chapters than we would in 7 chapters than we've done in the past. Like, the Gorosei is heading to Egghead. We find out that Stussy is a clone of one of the Rock's pirates. Edward Weevil was captured by Ryokugyu while Marco was gone. We're getting all these all these new tidbits of information. Ever since we've been here on Egghead, it's like this is the biggest info dump arc we've had in a very, very long time. Even more so than Wano. Because a lot of stuff got revealed in Wano, but here in Egghead, we're getting so much stuff just packed and just given to us. Like finding out that Kuma is Bonnie's father. Finding out that he's able to push out his own memories. I'm liking this Mads flashback within the cover story. It is nice. It is nice. Because you'd think that Derma 66's an emotionless excursion, you would think that would have stopped there. You might as well call this a Mads side story if we're finding out more and more information about Mads this way. Even though, because it makes me wonder, should it really still be called Germa 66's an emotionless excursion if we're only seeing young Judge in there, but it's not just Judge and it's not even focused on Judge? during the time of Mads. It's really more of a Mads and everything that has to do with Mads type of situation. Should it really be called Germa 66 is on an emotionless excursion still, if it's not focused on Germa? That's just a thought that I had. But we've been getting so much information ever since this Madhead, this Egghead Island arc started. I can only imagine what amount of information we're going to get once we come out of Egghead, because this is not a long arc. This is actually what you would call like a stepping stone arc before we get to the really big arc next. So, I don't know. It just feels like Oda is really keeping a very steady, brisk pace with the storytelling with these past chapters. And I can only hope and wonder what Oda's going to reveal to us in February. We only got 3 chapters in January, and we learned so much. February, matter of fact, we should expect an even shorter amount of chapters for February. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we don't get a break, because we're not getting, well, actually, we may wind up getting less chapters in February, since we're still going to be on break. Hold on. Next 12 days. So if we count from here. Yes, the next chapter we get is on the 12th of February, which will only leave 2 more Sundays after that. If they go on break for February, if they go on break in February, we may actually have only 2 chapters of One Piece in February. That's just what I'm assuming, but it seems likely. So February may end up being a shorter month with less chapters in it before we pick it back up again in March. So it's anyone's guess how much more Egghead has left in it. There will be at least 1 break week. We tend to get 3 chapters and a break, plus additional breaks that stretch out the schedule when Jump takes a break. I wouldn't be surprised if we're still in Egghead at the end of the year. It looks like we're getting a Kuma backstory and the potential fights against the world government. I don't know if we're going to stay in Egghead the rest of the year, because that would mean this is going to be a whole year that's just dedicated to Egghead. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know if that will truly be the case, though. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't know if Egghead is that big of an arc for it to stretch out an entire year. Because we're already at a point where the Straw Hats are trying to leave Egghead. Would be surprised if we last through December. I expect an exit between May and October. I feel like maybe the summer or leading into the summer might be the end of Egghead if we don't end sooner. But I don't see Egghead being so long that it lasts the entire year and it's just been nothing but Egghead. I don't know. We'll have to see. Overall, as I close today's stream, we learned so much through these chapters of One Piece in the month of January, and I'm looking forward to the amount of One Piece we're going to learn in February. To everyone here, this has been a fantastic discussion. Once again, apologies for the error or little mishap that's going on with my chat right now where it doesn't automatically update what all of you are saying. It's very weird. I'll figure it out. But this just leaves even more questions and more expectations about where we're going to end up once this break is over. Could agree with that. This arc seems like a combination of Reverie, Enies Lobby, and Sabaody. Egghead is post-time skip Sabaody Archipelago. It kind of feels that way. A little bit. A little, but not by much. But we're just going to have to see where everything ends up once we reach the end of Egghead. So we'll figure it out. And hopefully we'll get some even more information about devil fruits and how they're able to change the human body. Even though Vegapunk says that he theorizes that those fruits are basically the desires of people who really wish for this to happen or that to happen or to be this or to be that. We still need a more concrete answer as to what these fruits actually are, how they're able to do what they're doing, and how he was able to. Basically, I feel like I want to know everything. But I know we don't have that much time. So hopefully Oda will give us everything that we hoped and everything that we desire from the stories and the characters and everything. And who knows where the Straw Hats are going to end up once Egghead is over. We still need to see what happens if Kizaru reunites with the Straw Hats after 2 years, because the last time we saw him, Kizaru was the last person to see all the Straw Hats. He was the last admiral to see all the Straw Hats before they disappeared for 2 years. Actually, Kizaru was the last person who saw all the Straw Hats together before they all got separated. So to see all of them interact with Kizaru again, it ought to be interesting. But it also ought to be interesting to see what type of impression Saint J. Garcia Saturn leaves on everyone when he sees them. Because all this talk about Monkey D. Luffy being a major threat to the world government, this may be the first time where one of the members of the Gorosei actually meets Monkey D. Luffy in person. So that ought to be interesting. But, like I said, we just gotta wait and see what Oda decides to surprise us with, because he does nothing but surprises. I have to say, this might be the most hardest of me to predict of what Oda is going to do with this story. But it also makes me happy because it's also cool that I don't know anything. So, like I said, we're just gonna have to wait and see where this break goes to give us a little inkling about where this story could possibly take us. But overall, 3 fantastic chapters of One Piece. And this has been a lovely discussion, and I always enjoy doing these discussions for all of you. But now I'm going to take my leave. I kept you guys here for 2 hours and 16 minutes. Hopefully I didn't drone on too long, but I just like having these discussions. Also, in the future, I am going to be having discussions about My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, One Punch Man, and the other series that I read here. Because for as much time as I dedicate to talking about One Piece, it's not the only series that I have on my channel. I definitely want to talk about My Hero Academia, about society in the My Hero, and all these other things. I really want to talk about those things. So I want to have retrospectives and videos and time to talk about these other series that I read. So it's not just seeming like I'm giving favoritism to One Piece. So that'll be something I do in the future. But I hope to see you guys there. And to everyone here, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, subscribe, share this stream with everyone you know, because the more the merrier. And maybe even consider becoming a member, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples.